girl, hey! Welcome to Girl, You Can Do Anything, the podcast for single mothers rewriting the narrative and reclaiming their power. I'm your host, Ambria McDonald, educator, advocate, and yes, a single mama. I'm on a mission to heal, grow, and glow from the inside out. So I created a podcast for women just like me. Let's get into today's episode. So I wanted to first off start by saying thank you to everyone who tuned in for the first episode of the podcast. We launched on Mother's Day, which is May 11, 2025. And we're coming to you bi-weekly. Every other Sunday, a new episode is dropping with all types of gemstones, tools, tricks, and tips just to get through this single motherhood. I remember, I'm laughing. I'm going to get to the joke, I promise. I remember when God put it on my heart to do this podcast, I was really torn because I was like, okay, God, I want to be obedient. I want to do what you told me to do. But in the same sense, Lord, you want me to be like outside? I mean, not outside. But you really want me to open up to people and talk about all the things and like how I'm navigating this single motherhood? And he was like, yeah. And so I wanted to say very candidly, like, I am in transition. I am in process. This is a space for me to also kind of redefine who I am and to refocus on the things that are pertinent to me, like despite the role of a single mama, right? So God also reminded me of Revelations 12 and 11. Essentially, he says, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And so I became very encouraged. Okay, my story is for somebody else. Somebody at some point is going to hear something that I say, and they're going to be able to use it. So I say that to say thank you for listening. Thank you for tapping in. Continue to like, share, subscribe, click the link in the bio, do all the things, okay? I really wanted to talk about this mic. If y'all was really rocking with me on the first episode, Shorty was up here holding her mic. I'm scrolling my computer on one hand. Like, I'm just doing all the things. And let's be clear. When I first set out to set up the equipment and put the lights up and all the decor and whatnot, I had bought a mic, right? Like the handheld one that y'all saw, that it like goes on straight on top of a desktop. And that was cool. Clearly it worked for the first episode, but it didn't work because I had so much like echo and like reverb kind of bouncing off all of the walls. And I mean, to make matters worse, I have a lower register tone voice. And so one of my friends hit me up and was like, okay, James Earl Jones, shout out to the original Mufasa on the ones and twos. But yeah, he was like, you out here sounding like James Earl Jones. But all that to say, I got a new mic, y'all. And I will say I like it. I'm understanding now why podcasters have a hand-free mic, because some of us like to talk with our hands, but also the better mics that you get, the sound quality improves, you have to do like less editing and all the things. So all that to say, y'all, I'm learning. But like, it's the second episode and I'm already improving, so y'all should journey with me, in other words. Before I get into the things of the episode today, I wanted to chat about doing things scared. A lot of times I feel like in life we are waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect timing, the perfect person, the perfect circumstances and situations to align in this just way for us to make a move on anything. And I wanted to like share a part of my story and how I'm getting the podcast off of the ground and like the tips and tricks and the things that I'm kind of going through and like troubleshooting and people supporting me, right? I wanted that to be a word to somebody today. Just because you do not have everything that you want or everything before you that you think you should have is not an excuse anymore. It is not an excuse to delay literally the thing that God has told you to do. Or even if we take God out of it, right? If you know that there's something that you felt in your spirit for a long time to do, you're just not doing it because, oh, I don't have the equipment, I'm just saying, we can always find 1,000,001 excuses to do anything or to not do anything. And so I want to push us today. I want to admonish us today. Girl, do the damn thing. Do what you're supposed to do, because we literally can do anything, okay? All right, so let's hop into today's episode. I went to a conference a couple of weeks back. For those of you who don't know me, who are new to the audience, I am a 4th-year PhD candidate at Yale School of the Environment. I study drinking water and public health outcomes of contaminated drinking water sources. I won't bore you all with my research on today's episode, but I said that to say I went to a conference. And during one of the speeches of one of the speakers, they mentioned a term called overburdened and underserved. And I sat there, and mind you, I've heard this term before. It's an environmental justice term. I know that's a taboo word these days, or taboo phrase to say, right? Whatever. It's an environmental justice term. And essentially it talks about how there are Black and brown people who are overburdened by like toxic pollutants just based off of proximity to like toxic dumps, poor water quality. They typically have less financial support and means, lower socioeconomic status, lower education, etc., 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 right? And then the other underserved portion of that is they don't have the, again, resources or the people to support them and to do the actual things to make the community thrive. And so it brought me back here, y'all. In other words, I literally was like, oh my goodness. As single moms, sometimes I know I feel overburdened and underserved. Like, people don't get it, or people are making excuses for you, or they're making assumptions about you. But also there's a bajillion things like on our plate, right? I need to cook all the meals. I need to make sure baby is clothed and fed. I need to make sure the summer wardrobe is together. Baby's growing like weeds, so we gotta make sure that they have what they need. School is out. It's May in 2025 if you're listening to this episode. But like the babies is out of school, so they outside. You gotta put them in extracurricular activities, and then don't even get into house chores and you doing that on your own as well, especially if you don't have like older kids or like a huge support system that can come by your house and help support you in a certain way. And don't forget maintenance. I mean, the list can go on and literally on about all the things that we need to do, because the tight run ships, they start to unravel when like pieces start to fall apart. And so I thought about us when I was listening to that speaker talk about overburdened and underserved communities, because again, sometimes we fit that mold. And I started thinking about what could be helpful, what's actually practical, what are things that could be helpful. And honestly, if you're listening to this podcast right now and you're nodding like, yup, that's same, that's me, I really want to let you know, sis, like, I see you, I hear you, you are definitely not alone. I see you out there being tired, but you're still showing up. I see you out there being overwhelmed, but you're still pouring out. When you feel as if that you are unsupported in places, but you are still creating and supporting others, sis, I see you, for real. And I wanted to give us some practical tools today that talks about not perfection, not how to make things better, not create better systems, because God forbid somebody gets sick and everything kind of goes out of whack anyway. But I'm thinking about peace. How do we maintain our peace, understanding that we are underserved and that sometimes we are overburdened by all the things that we have to keep afloat? And so I thought about the word breathe, like literally inhale, exhale, breathing, right? And I'm thinking about it as a survival strategy. And I created this acronym, and that means something for each one of the letters. When we are feeling overburdened, we are feeling underserved, I want us to breathe. And when I say breathe, I mean take a break. Take a break. Sometimes you really just need to take a pause, and that could mean going for a walk outside. It could be sitting in a room with the lights off, just so like you can meditate to kind of get your mind back right. It could also be if you have the luxury of taking a couple of days off from work or a couple of days off from whatever other responsibilities that you have to potentially get you to a place where you can reset, which brings me to girl, you gotta release. You gotta reset. You gotta rest. You tap into some resources. Okay, it's a bunch of R's for that one. But when you're on your break, outside of, I know you're trying not to do the mental work, but when you're on a break, take a couple of those seconds, those moments, figure out, okay, is my reset just me inhaling and exhaling? Is my reset or is my rest for a couple of days, for a few minutes? Set a timer for 20 minutes and do what you gotta do to get your mind right, whatever that means for you. But take a break, then we're gonna reset, okay? And once we're resetting, I think we should be thinking about our resources. Who do we have that we can tap into? Who is in our proximity? And if you're like me, I don't have a community of people. I live in Connecticut here that I won't say rely on. That's not true. Okay, so my listeners that are in Connecticut and y'all know we Kiki, listen, I ain't talking to y'all. But like your resources could be human capital, going like where can you put your baby in like a daycare or a childcare just so that you can have a 2-hour break? Even if that means you going to the gym. I don't know if they do this anymore, but like back in the day, some gyms used to have like memberships where you can drop your kid off and you can work out for an hour and you come back and pick up your kid's own, especially if your baby is of that age. But yeah, tap into like your resources, human capital resources. But if you have the financial means, girl, take a break. Literally go on vacation, get your mind right, take a couple of days, and it could even be a day trip or a home, what you call those things? The homecations, staycations. The staycations, it can even be a staycation. Get you a little hotel, order you some nice food or some room services if it's a really nice hotel. Take care of their spa services. Take care of yourself. Okay, which leads me into E. So we was gonna break. We're gonna take a reset. We're gonna get a little rest. We're gonna release whatever drama that we got going on. And then we're gonna tap into some resources. And then 3, we're gonna E as an evaluate for efficiency. Okay, girl, you are clearly tired. You are burned out. There's too much on your plate. You feel some kind of way. You feel all the stress and tension in your shoulders. You got headaches. Your stomach is all out of whack. You got all types of stressors going on, right? So evaluate. Now it's time to be like, okay, I had 15 things on my plate last week. That is not effective for me. That is not efficient for me. I may need to do 10 things next week. And I know it sounds very simple, but sometimes we actually do need to sit down and evaluate like the things that are on our plate. I'm from the deep south, from Mississippi to be exact. And we got some southern sayings, right? And a lot of times when we go eat, because sometimes we go to buffets in the south, you will hear people be like, oh, my eyes ate, right? Or my stomach was too full. My eyes ate before my stomach could. I'm paraphrasing here. Clearly got the wrong quote. People in the chat, please drop and let me know what I'm supposed to be saying. But I say that to say, sometimes we put too many things on our plate. And sometimes we are full before we even finish our plate. And we need to figure out, what can we take off of our plate? What can we give to somebody else? What can we delegate? You know what I mean? And so evaluate for efficiency. And then attitude is our A in breathe, right? I ain't gonna hold you. Sometimes I be moody. Sometimes I got an attitude. Sometimes when I am feeling overburdened, overwhelmed, feeling underserved, feeling stressed, I am moody. I don't want you to be talking to me about anything that ain't gonna help me get to where I need to be, right? And so I'm having to remind even myself, girl, check your attitude, because sometimes it could actually make the situation a whole lot worse. And then you, like how you internally process, if you start to externally say those things, they show up, like they actually manifest. So learning to train our brains and our attitude to actually be nice. Like you have an internal voice, an internal compass that's positive. And I know that sometimes feels rare, again, when we don't feel like we have a community or we feel like we're doing things alone. But yeah, check our attitudes sometimes, because it sometimes be us. I'm saying that for me. It's sometimes me. Like, it's sometimes me. So check our attitudes. Okay, now we're gonna get some help. So the T stands for therapy. Now I understand therapy can be costly if they are not in your network. I understand if it feels like it's taboo in your community. Girl, I can't go be letting other folks be in my business. And I'm gonna say that's a lie. You can. You really can. As a matter of fact, you will be really surprised at how much you learn about yourself, how much you actually release by going to talk to somebody. Okay? So let's get some help. I'm gonna continue to say that over and over and over again. I'm gonna really end up sounding like a broken record when I say therapy, because it is a conduit to your healing process, which brings me to H. Healing and health. They honestly go hand in hand. Whether you are healing old traumatic wounds mentally, that will eventually affect your emotions and clearly affect your physical health. I haven't chatted much yet, because we will. There'll be probably a whole episode dedicated to it. Like cortisol levels, or like your stress hormones being so high in your body, it actually makes you retain some of the weight. Like we could be in the gym 15 times a week if we was able to, right? But like you don't see things moving. A lot of times it's probably because you have an overabundant amount of like stress hormone in your body. So we're needing to learn how to balance out those hormones. But like when you prioritize your mind, your body, your spirit, like you start acting towards a life, or moving towards a life of wellness, taking care of yourself. And honestly, you ain't even gotta go out and pay nobody for any of this stuff. You can go to YouTube, you can go to Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to this podcast, or wherever else, right? And literally put on a 5-10 minute woosah, right? Meditation. That's what we could do as a part of helping to prioritize our health. And then again, going back to T for therapy, once you start to uncover some things, that puts you on this healing journey. And I know we have all heard stories about bitter baby moms and them keeping their kids from the child's father. I'm not saying this because, believe me, I understand there are spectrums here, and there are some cases where the mothers have felt as if the fathers were going to hurt their child. I'm not talking about that here, right? I'm really saying, like, once you get yourself on a healing journey, that bitterness starts to break up, that unforgiveness starts to break up. A lot of those things that we were hiding in our hearts, a lot of that pain that we had kind of kept to ourselves, really just starts to fall off. And truly, it's because it's a conduit of you going to therapy, getting that help that you need, and understanding of what you need, and becoming a whole lot more healed, therefore whole, therefore you are now healthy. Okay, and last but not least, we get to eat. So we're going through our breathe acronym. We got break, because shorty, take a break. You need to take a break. We don't need you to be out here continuing to be overburdened and underserved. Take a break, okay? Your kids need you to take the break. Number 2, we were going to release, reset, refresh, refocus, use our resources, whatever other R words you want to put there. We're going to use our resources to help us get the rest we need. And we're going to release the stress that is clearly making us feel overburdened. And then we're going to evaluate our picture sheet. What is working? What is not working? We're going to check our attitude. Girl, is it you today, or was it really them? T, we're going to go to therapy. We're going to get us some help. You don't have to necessarily even go anymore into an actual doctor's office for therapy. You can literally do it right here on your phone, on your computer, Zoom calls, 30 minutes, 45 minutes for a session. that are relatively cheap. A lot of practices you can pay out of pocket now directly to the source. We're gonna get therapy, which is gonna put us on a trajectory to be healed, which will help us prioritize our holistic health. And then last but not least, execute. So we done talked about all these things that we're gonna do, but it's not gonna go anywhere unless we actually execute it, right? Put it into practice. Anytime you start something new, it always feels super hard, bit by bit, piece by piece. Let's say, for instance, we can't put all of the acronyms into place today, right? All of the letters of the acronym. We may be able to do the first three. We can breathe, we can release, reset, tap into some resources, and then evaluate for efficiency. Next week, baby, then we may be able to evaluate our attitude. So I don't want us to be overwhelmed. That's literally not the purpose. On an episode called Overburdened and Underserved, it's not to overburden you, right? It's not to give you more things to do, just a tool that you can add to your tool belt. So yes, honey, we got to execute. All right, sis. You are no longer just surviving with the tools that we talked about today. You are strategizing. You are not overburdening yourself anymore. You are literally overflowing with the power that you've tapped into by choosing yourself and choosing your kids and doing the things that you need to do for yourself, for your kids. We are no longer underserved. We are undeniably worthy of all of the care, all of the reset, all of the release, all of the holistic health that we are seeking. So until next time, girl, remember, you can do anything and breathe. I'm your host, Ambria. Love you much, girl.